The orbital city of Lysinthus Prime shimmered against the black canvas of space, a radiant coil of glass towers and neon veins suspended above the gas giant Talaris IV. Every level pulsed with life merchants shouting in interspecies, tongues, diplomats cloaked in secrecy, and scavengers slipping between shadows. For Ensign Talis Vire, security liaison of the Lorathi delegation, it might as well have been a hive of overperfumed chaos. She adjusted the alloy plate on her forearm and muttered a curse in her native tongue as she dodged a cart stacked with synthafruit. Her orange-blue skin shimmered under the station lights, and her dark teal hair was braided tight against her scalp, efficient and out of the way, unlike everything else happening around her. 3 days of trade talks, and the humans still hadn't signed the mineral rights agreement. Arrogant, slow-talking, stubborn little mammals, she thought. I don't care how reasonable they claim to be, she grumbled under her breath. If one more of them leans in with that smug tone, I swear I will. A loud clang echoed from the industrial wing. She paused. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate, not the chaos of market chatter or the thrum of transit lifts. Curious, she followed it through a side corridor past a blinking maintenance drone and into a corridor marked A4 Subdeck Human Recreation Bay, authorized species only. She scoffed at the sign. If anyone asked, she was very authorized. The double doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a brightly lit, sweat-slick chamber filled with gleaming equipment. Gravity rings spun lazily above tread platforms. Repeater pulleys creaked under load. But at the center of the room, like something out of a primitive war trial, was a metal rack manual analog barbaric, and beneath it stood a human, shirtless. His skin was tanned and freckled, a sheen of sweat catching the overhead lights. He lifted an absurdly dense barbell over his head arms, straining with perfect form. His jaw was square hair, short and dark, and mussed. A thin scar curved down the side of his neck like punctuation. Is this performance art? She asked louder than necessary. The barbell clanged into its cradle. The man turned slowly, brows lifting in amusement. That depends, he said, voice gravelly and calm. Are you impressed? Talis snorted. I'm baffled. Are you humans still living in the Iron Age, or is this some sort of tribal ritual? He wiped his forehead with a towel and grinned. Bit of both. It's called lifting. Works muscles. Builds strength. You should try it sometime. I could break you with 2 fingers, she said, strolling forward with exaggerated swagger. You realize Lorathi bone density is triple yours, right? I do now. He extended a hand. Lieutenant Connell Maddox, Earth Expeditionary Force. She stared at the offered hand like it might bite her. Talis Vire, Lorathi Defense Accord. I don't touch his strange species without gloves. Maddox chuckled and dropped his hand. Fair enough. Talis's gaze flicked to his abs, ridiculously well-defined, like someone had etched them with a plasma cutter. She frowned. Those can't be real. He patted them casually. Built the old-fashioned way. Gravity, effort, grit. Sounds exhausting. It is. There was a pause. Go on then, he said suddenly. Take a shot. She blinked. A what? Right here. He tapped his abdomen. Give me your best punch. She raised an eyebrow. You want me to hit you in the stomach if I'm as fragile as you think I'll crumple. But if not, his grin turned devilish. Might adjust your assumptions? Talis smirked. You're going to regret this. She stepped in, clenched her fist, not full force, but enough to dent a light alloy panel and drove it forward. Her knuckles met steel, or at least that's what it felt like. Pain detonated in her hand. She stumbled back with a hiss, clutching her fingers. What in the void? Maddox hadn't moved. He just looked down at her with that same maddening smile. Still think I'm made of noodles? You're a damn alloy replicant, she spat, flexing her fingers as fire lanced through her palm. Who builds humans like this Earth? He said with mock pride, tossing her a small ice pack from a cooler. You might want to get that checked. Med bays on Subdeck 3. Talis fumed silently, nursing her hand as she stared him down. I don't get it. Your species is supposed to be weaker. You've been reading too many old conflict files, he replied. We're full of surprises. She should have walked away. She really should have. But instead she blurted, fine. 1 drink. You owe me for nearly breaking my wrist. He winked. Deal. An hour later, her hand wrapped in a regeneration sheath, and her pride only mildly bruised, Talus found herself sitting across from him in the station's upper-level lounge, watching simulated nebulae swirl behind translucent walls. He'd changed into a simple black shirt and slacks, still absurdly attractive, and far too smug. So she said, sipping a glass of Lorathi flame wine, "Is this how you ensnare alien dignitaries? With a flesh trap, I prefer to call it cultural diplomacy," Maddox said smoothly. She laughed despite herself, and that's when her communicator buzzed. Encrypted channel, from High Sentinel Tharvax himself. She read the message and her blood ran cold. "Ensign Vire Intelligence confirms the humans are hiding something critical. Your new directive: embed, observe, and sabotage if necessary. Trust no one." Her stomach twisted. She looked up at Maddox, who was watching her curiously over the rim of his drink. He smiled. She forced herself to smile back. This was going to get complicated. The Cosmic Bloom Lounge bathed everything in soft hues of lavender and cyan, giving Connell Maddox an almost ethereal glow as he leaned back in his seat, one brow cocked in amused suspicion. "You okay there?" he asked, sipping his drink like nothing in the universe could surprise him. Talus Vire masked her swirling thoughts behind a cool smirk. Your mixologist poured a heavy hand. Not used to drinking with gravity set at Earth standard. She wasn't lying. About the gravity, at least. Her bones ached slightly from the denser pull, but that wasn't why her stomach was knotted. The message from High Sentinel Tharvax still glared in her vision, superimposed across her neural lens, like a silent order hanging over a war zone. Observe, sabotage, do what's necessary. And yet Maddox, this maddening, impossible human, was currently picking pretzel flakes off his shirt like a bored civilian on shore leave. How could a species that dressed their soldiers like space gym teachers possibly be hiding anything dangerous? Then again, she'd nearly broken her hand on his stomach. "Your drink's going to evaporate if you keep staring at it like that," he said. Talus downed the rest of her flame wine in one smooth gulp, letting the burn refocus her. "You always work out shirtless in foreign stations, or is today just special? I like to keep the diplomatic arena unpredictable. By blinding people with abdominal symmetry?" "Exactly." She rolled her eyes, but a laugh escaped before she could stop it. As they chatted about planetary cuisines and the ridiculousness of formal galactic etiquette, Talus nearly choked at his impression of a Torkari trade minister. She found herself watching him too closely. The way he thought before speaking, the flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes when she talked about Lorathi's starship designs. There was no way this man was just a soldier. He listened too well. He remembered details. He was dangerous, in a way she hadn't prepared for. When they parted at the elevator banks, he offered her a half salute. "Same time tomorrow." Talus hesitated, then nodded once. "For cultural comparison purposes only." Of course, purely academic. But as the doors slid shut between them, her mind was already 2 steps ahead. Back in her quarters, she activated her secure terminal. The connection flickered, then stabilized to reveal High Sentinel Tharvax's severe blue face. "Status?" he asked. "I've made contact," she replied. "Close proximity. He's assigned to internal security for the Earth delegation. And he's not what I expected." Her hesitation earned her a sharp glare from the screen. "Veer, this mission is critical. There are reports of Earth operatives conducting covert asset movement in the mining sectors. We suspect they're using the mineral treaty as cover for staging weapon shipments. We need proof." She exhaled slowly. "Understood, sir. And if this Maddox proves useful, exploit the connection. But do not forget where your loyalties lie." The screen went black. The next day she found herself waiting for him before he arrived. Maddox strolled into the lounge dressed in loose civilian attire again, but this time his demeanor was different, tighter. His easy smirk was still there, but his eyes flicked more often to shadows, to corners, to exits. "You get assigned new orders?" she asked after their greetings. He gave her a sidelong glance. "Might be some movement near the old cargo subgrids." "There's been chatter." "Chatter from who?" He paused as if weighing how much to trust her. "Station-wide comm intercepts, smuggling ops, maybe more." That got her attention. She'd heard rumors too, whispers about a new player moving weaponized AI shells through the raw ore shipments. The same shipments her people wanted access to. "Want to check it out?" he asked casually, biting the edge of a stem fruit. Talus arched an eyebrow. "Just the two of us. You scared of getting bored?" Yes. They suited up in field gear, non-lethal loads, only according to Maddox's cover protocol, and slipped into the lower maintenance tiers of Lysanthos Prime. These levels weren't mapped for visitors. They existed between layers of official floor plans used by maintenance drones, smugglers, and people who wanted to disappear. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. "You sure you're not leading me into a trap?" she asked, voice low. "I was going to ask you the same thing," he replied. She glanced at him. "Would it work?" "Probably," he said with a grin. They reached a narrow corridor branching into three paths. Maddox pulled out a scanner, frowned, and tapped its side. "Signal interference. They're using jammers." "I've got something better," she said, activating her ocular thermal lens. A heat signature shimmered faintly down the left corridor. Movement. Two figures. Stationary. Maddox's hand brushed her uninjured one. "Come on." They moved fast and quiet, pausing near a utility closet set into the wall. When a sudden clang echoed around the corner, Maddox didn't hesitate. He pulled the door open, grabbed her hand, and yanked them both inside. The space was tight, too tight. Their bodies pressed together, and Talus could feel the solid weight of his frame against hers. She'd faced down Lorathi assassins, void marauders, and once a three-headed sandworm, but nothing had prepared her for the electric awareness of standing this close to a human she wasn't supposed to trust. "Necessary," she whispered. "You want to explain what we're doing to a bunch of armed smugglers?" he murmured back, his breath warm against her ear. Outside, muffled voices passed by. Centuran dialect, talking about shipment dates. Maddox's arm tightened slightly around her waist as he leaned to listen better, and now their faces were inches apart. Too close. Every heartbeat thudded like an alarm in her chest. "You smell like metal and spice," she whispered, unsure why the words left her lips. "You smell like moonlight and a bad idea," he murmured back. Their eyes locked. Neither moved. Or maybe both did. The kiss was sudden, heated, wrong. So wrong. But also, stars help her, it was good. It didn't last long. Just enough to confuse her, to pull her out of the neat lines she'd drawn around this assignment. His hand cradled her cheek like he wasn't sure if she'd vanish. Hers curled into the collar of his shirt, ready to push him away and pull him in all at once. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless and furious with herself most of all. "This is a mistake," she said. "Probably," he agreed, "but not one I regret." "Me neither." Then the voices outside faded and the opportunity passed. Still, they didn't leave the closet immediately. When they did, the air between them crackled with tension. Not suspicion. Something worse. Uncertainty. Because neither of them knew what the hell they were doing anymore. And neither of them wanted to stop. They didn't talk much after leaving the maintenance corridor. Talus led the way, her strides clipped and deliberate, jaw tight. Connell trailed her, unusually quiet, as if unsure what part of their misstep he regretted getting caught kissing an alien officer in a smuggler-infested corridor, or not kissing her sooner. Back in the main corridor, the thrum of station life returned. The antiseptic brightness of Lysanthos Prime dulled the fire in Talus's cheeks, but her thoughts remained sharp. Dangerous? Disordered? The station's upper lifts opened into the diplomatic ring, and Connell finally spoke. "You want to talk about it?" She didn't turn around. "The smugglers? Yeah, let's..." "Cute." Talus stopped short, facing him. "We're not doing this." His expression was unreadable, that irritating calm back in place. "Doing whatever that was back there," she said, gesturing vaguely to the corridor they'd just escaped. It was momentary confusion, environmental stress, proximity response. Proximity response. Connell blinked. "You mean kissing? That wasn't kissing. That was espionage, proximity, misfire." He stepped closer. "Because you were trying to extract state secrets from my mouth." "Exactly." His grin returned slow and lopsided. "Did you get any?" She hated that it made her smile. "Just a little. Only that humans apparently have no self-preservation instincts." "Guilty." They stood in silence, the air between them warm and taut again. But then Talus's communicator chimed. Encrypted. High Sentinel Tharvax. She hesitated. Connell caught the shift in her posture, the subtle tension in her shoulders. Problem, he asked. No. She turned away. I have to check in. Alone. He didn't argue. Same time tomorrow. She nodded without looking back. In her quarters, the message came through sharp and direct. Tharvax's image flickered to life with no preamble. You were seen with Maddox near Sector A4. Report. Intel confirmed, Talus said, voice clipped. Centurion smugglers likely connected to the black market AI transporters. He brought me in on it. Tharvax's gaze narrowed. Too convenient. He suspects something. If he does, he's not showing it. But there is more, sir. She transmitted her scan data. Thermal anomalies jamming fields and coordinated off-grid movement. Someone's building something under our feet. Tharvax reviewed the data silently for several seconds. Very well. Continue building trust. If he's clean, use him. If not, remove him. The channel closed. Talus stood still for a long moment, the weight of her orders heavy in her chest. Remove him. That was protocol. Detach. Eliminate threats. She'd done it before, but something about Connell Maddox wouldn't sit still in her calculations. He wasn't clean, but he didn't feel like the enemy either, which made him more dangerous than any warlord. The next evening, Maddox waited for her outside the observation dome. She hadn't told him to meet her there, but somehow he'd known. Figured you might want to change a venue, he said. The dome curved above them, projecting an impossible view of the starfield outside. Clusters of bright blue gas shimmered like breath caught in a mirror. Talus stepped beside him. Nice view. I hear humans are romantic that way. You're not romantic, she said. He smirked. No, you're a liability with abs. He chuckled, the sound reverberating through the still air. That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me today. Their banter slowed as the stars moved above them, silent and ageless. She glanced at him sideways. You weren't surprised by the smugglers. He was quiet for a moment. Then no. I've been tracking activity for weeks, but command's keeping it quiet. Even from the station's council. Why? Because there's more going on than just smuggling. He tapped a holographic control and a 3D schematic appeared between them. The station, the mining routes, multiple hidden caches. Talus's blood ran cold. She recognized some of the markings. They matched Larathi military staging patterns, only they were under human control. You think your people are prepping for war, she asked. Connell shook his head. No, I think someone wants it to look like that. Talus stiffened. What do you mean? I've been intercepting communications. False flag broadcasts, staged incidents. Someone's trying to paint the Larathi as aggressors, and not just on our end. I've seen similar doctored data about Earth outposts. Someone's manufacturing a reason for conflict. Her mind reeled. That aligned too perfectly with what Tharvax had suggested, only in reverse. What do you want to do with it, she asked. He looked at her. I want to find the truth, and if I'm right, I want to stop a war. She studied him in the dim starlight. His face was sincere, his body relaxed but ready. There was no duplicity in his words, no manipulation, just resolve. I'll help you, she said. He didn't ask why, but he did smile. Later that night, they descended again into the maintenance layers, following new leads from Maddox's decrypted files. They moved like shadow and steel, coordinated and quiet. For two soldiers from different worlds, they fought and moved like one. At Junction 7C, they paused. Talus checked her scanner. 2 heat signatures. Stationary. I'll flank left. I'll go right. No, you're still healing, he said, gesturing toward her hand. Let me go. She frowned. Stop fussing. Not fussing, strategizing. She rolled her eyes but let him take point. They crept around the junction. Talus saw him hold up 2 fingers, 2 targets. He moved like liquid muscle and precision, disabling the first with a sweep to the knees and a stun cuff to the neck. The second turned, but Talus was already behind them. Blaster pressed to the back of their skull. The fight lasted 10 seconds. After cuffing both suspects, they dragged them into a sealed maintenance room. Connell looked at her, breathing hard hair, slightly mussed. You're pretty good at this. I'm elite guard, remember? You humans think we just sit around polishing our claws. Honestly, he said, I've stopped trying to guess. And then something changed. The moment slowed. The room dimmed quiet except for the soft whir of life support fans. She took a step forward. So did he. Their lips met again, this time with no smug remarks, no sarcastic commentary. Just heat and certainty and something else neither wanted to name yet. When they pulled apart breathless, he murmured, "Still an espionage misfire." "Definitely. Still regretting it." Talus didn't answer, because no matter how loud her duty screamed, it couldn't drown out the way her heart had started to whisper his name. The interrogation didn't go as expected. Talus had expected denials, stalling, maybe a few threats. Instead, the two Centran smugglers barely flinched when questioned. One sat in silence, arms crossed, while the other smirked through every word. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," the talkative one said in a hiss of broken common. "You think we're the threat, you're standing in the middle of the real operation." "What operation?" Connell asked, arms folded, tone deceptively calm. The Centurion leaned forward. "We're just movers. Couriers. You want the ones pulling strings? Try your own governments. They're playing the long game." Talus narrowed her eyes. "What are they moving?" The smuggler's grin widened, needle-sharp teeth flashing. "Something that doesn't belong in your hands or theirs. Doesn't matter, though. It'll all burn soon." Connell slammed a fist into the table, rattling the cuffs. "What's the target?" The smuggler shrugged. "You'll find out. Probably too late." They weren't bluffing. That was the worst part. Both she and Connell could feel it, the quiet certainty in their voices. The sense of being pawns in something much larger than an illegal weapons trade. After securing the prisoners and filing a restricted report to the neutral security wing, Talus and Connell returned to their shared hideout, a decommissioned survey module tucked behind a sealed gravity panel. It was small, quiet, and for the last 2 days it had been the only place either of them trusted. "Lorathi Command wants this sector badly," Connell said as he reviewed data streams on a cracked holoscreen. "Too badly. This isn't about minerals anymore." "I don't think it ever was," Talus replied, pulling off her gloves. "There are encrypted pings routing through the central nexus comms. I traced one to a shadow node near the Earth delegation." Connell turned, brows raised. "Someone's trying to frame your people, or your people are trying to frame mine." The words hung between them, bitter and unresolved. He leaned back against the console. "Do you trust me?" She looked at him, really looked at him. "I don't know." "Fair." He pushed a hand through his hair. "I don't know if I trust me either." She stepped closer. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. Then softly, "Before this post I was Earthside. Special ops. Shadow work. Did things I can't talk about. Things I don't want to remember." She nodded slowly. "I know the type. I've done missions like this one before, embed deceive extract, but I've never cared what happened after. Until now." Talus's chest tightened. "You think caring makes you weak? I think it makes things harder. Doesn't mean I want to stop." They stood there, the silence thick with everything unsaid. The room felt too small, her uniform too tight, his presence too close. "I need air," she muttered, moving toward the exit. Connell followed. They ended up on an exterior catwalk 3 decks below the ambassadorial core. The viewport was cracked, revealing the swirling violet mists of Tularis of 4 below. Far above, the lights of Lysentos Prime blinked like a dying constellation. "You ever think about what would happen if we just walked away from it all?" he asked. "Walked where into open space." He gave her a crooked smile. "I mean the mission, the war, all of it." "I don't know how," she admitted. "Me neither." There was a pause, then Talus reached into her jacket and pulled out a slim data chip. She held it out. "This is a copy of the Shadow Ping routing logs. They confirm at least 2 Earthside access points to the false comms." Connell took it slowly, eyes narrowing. "Why give this to me? Because if I'm wrong, if my people are behind this, I need to know before I do something I can't undo." His jaw tightened. "Same." They exchanged the chip with careful fingers. But the moment lasted longer than it needed to. His hand lingered against hers. Then her communicator chirped. She answered without thinking. The hologram flickered to life midair, and this time it wasn't Tharvax. It was General Karras, her direct military superior. "Ensign Vire," he said sharply, "your mission parameters have changed." Talus's eyes darted to Connell. He was listening silent and still. You are to terminate all off-record contact with the human operative immediately. He has been flagged as a strategic asset with high-risk potential. You are further ordered to upload your surveillance data directly to Central Command and await reassignment. Her mouth was dry. Sir, we're on the edge of something big. If I pull out now, that's an order. The hologram vanished. Connell looked at her. They know. She nodded. They always do. I guess this is where we part ways. You could come with me, she said before she could stop herself. He blinked. To Lorathi, space, no. Just not back to Earth. Not yet. He laughed once dry. You're asking me to run with you. I'm not asking, she said, stepping close. I'm offering. His lips brushed hers before he spoke. I'll take it. They didn't wait. Within 10 minutes, they had grabbed their gear, stripped the module, and were heading toward the old freight routes that cut through the bottom tiers of the station. These routes hadn't been used in years, but Connell knew how to bypass the gates. We need to get off Lysanthos, he said. If the higher-ups are involved on both sides, there's only one place left to run. Neutral ground, he shook his head. The Black Zone, out beyond the nav ring. If we can get to the rogue courier outpost near Orbita 7, there's a broker who might help us leak this without it getting buried, or he might kill us and sell our organs. That's the spirit. As they approached the lower dock, Talus noticed something odd. Her biosignals were off. Slight fluctuations in hormone levels, heart rate spikes inconsistent with adrenaline. She tapped her scanner and frowned. You okay? Connell asked. Yeah, just a glitch in the med readout. She dismissed the data for now, but a faint worry curled in the pit of her stomach. As they boarded the stolen courier skiff, the klaxons rang out across the station. Security lockdown. They'd been flagged. Too late now, Connell muttered as he slammed the throttle. The ship roared forward, slipping through the half-sealed docking port just as the magnetic barriers began to close. Beyond the black opened wide, cold, endless, and full of unknowns. Talus looked back at the station as it shrank into the distance. Her mission was over. Her new one had just begun. And the man beside her, human, dangerous, maddening, was the only thing she trusted. For now. The stolen skiff was an ugly thing, rust-streaked, whining in protest with every engine pulse. But it held together as it hurtled beyond Lysanthos Prime's defensive perimeter and into the uncharted fringes of the orbital belt. Talus sat in the cramped co-pilot's chair, one leg drawn up, eyes locked on the slowly shrinking point of light behind them. The station looked so small now, almost peaceful, as if it hadn't nearly turned her life inside out. Connell was at the helm, jaw-clenched eyes sharp with calculation. His usual quips were gone, replaced by the quiet weight of adrenaline, betrayal, and too many questions. You ever done something like this before? She asked, voice low. Stolen a skiff and bolted into unregulated space with an alien woman whose species might declare war on mine by next week. He glanced at her. No. First time. Talus cracked a grin. You're doing all right. He didn't return it. Instead, he tapped the nav controls. We'll reach the courier outpost at Orbita 7 in 6 hours. Maybe less if the drive doesn't fall apart. Talus leaned her head back and closed her eyes. I need sleep. Wake me if something explodes. She didn't expect to drift off, but between the tension, the hum of the skiff, and her body's persistent weariness, she was unconscious in minutes. When she woke, something was wrong. Her body was too hot. Her chest was tight, and a dull ache throbbed low in her belly, one she hadn't noticed before. Connell was watching her, not intently, but like he'd been doing it a while. You all right? He asked. She sat up slowly, brushing sweat from her brow. Yeah. Just residual stress. Right, he said, clearly not convinced. She pulled her med scanner from her belt and activated it, pretending to check basic vitals. The results populated too quickly. There it was again. Elevated hormones, internal activity, secondary life signs, a faint blinking line beneath her bioscan. No, she whispered. Connell leaned over. What is it? Talus stared at the scan like it had betrayed her. The scanner's defective. He peered at the display. Talus, that's a prenatal diagnostic readout. She turned away, voice clipped. It's wrong. That's not possible. I think you're pregnant. She stood up too fast and grabbed the edge of the console for balance. That's biologically impossible. Connell's voice was quiet. Is it? She didn't respond. He didn't push. Just sat there, letting the silence settle around them. Minutes passed. Her mind spun through every Lorathi reproductive protocol, every xenogenetic barrier, every engineered incompatibility. She'd been trained, conditioned to believe this kind of cross-species conception was only possible in controlled medical environments. Synthetic assistance, genetic filtering, careful pairing. Not this, not them. I don't even know how long, she murmured. He stood and stepped toward her slowly like he might scare her off. You don't have to decide anything now. I just think we should know what's real. She didn't look at him, but she didn't step away either. Then the proximity alarms blared. Connell turned instantly, scanning the nav console. Ship trailing us. No ID beacon, no comms. They're closing fast. Talus forced herself to lock down the rising swirl in her chest. She grabbed her blaster and moved to the gunner seat. Can you outrun them, maybe? If I dump the secondary coolant lines. Do it. He hit the purge command and the ship jolted. The pursuing vessel, a sleek, black-winged predator, gained on them despite the burst. Within seconds, it was within weapons range. We're gonna have to fight, he muttered. I was hoping you'd say that. Talus powered up the rear turret and opened fire. Red pulses streaked through space, but the enemy ship veered smoothly, dodging, like it could read her intentions. They're good, she growled. Too good for pirates, Connell said grimly. Talus knew what he was thinking. They'd been tracked. Someone didn't want them reaching Orbita 7. Or worse, someone didn't want her, and the thing growing inside her escaping. The enemy ship fired. Plasma bolts struck their shielding with a jarring hiss rocking the skiff. We've got one shot, Connell said. That outpost has a deep space tether. I can jump the skiff's drive directly onto the tether field if I time it right. You'll tear us in half. Maybe. But if we stay here, we're done. Talus locked eyes with him. Do it. He pulled the throttle and initiated the override. The stars outside twisted, reality warped, and with a scream of metal and light, the skiff vanished into the jump tether's pull. They emerged in the shadow of Orbita 7's abandoned relay rings, the skiff trailing smoke and leaking coolant. But they were alive. Barely. The skiff crash-landed on the station's outer deck, grinding across old plating and finally lurching to a stop. Talus pulled herself up from where she'd been flung against the cabin wall. Still in one piece, Connell grunted. Mostly, they stumbled out into the oxygen-thin corridor of the outpost blasters drawn. The place was empty, at least at first glance. Then came the faint sound of movement. Not hostile, not armed. A figure stepped into view. Slender, blue-skinned, forearms folded in the ceremonial gesture of peace. I am Dr. Sael Venra, she said in perfect common, chief xenogeneticist of the Galactic Exobiology Circle. I've been tracking your biosignature. Talus lifted her blaster. Why? Because the hybrid embryo you carry is emitting a signal no one has ever recorded. You are the first, and there are others less peaceful tracking it too. Connell stepped forward. The ship that attacked us, agents of the Syndicate. They know, and they fear what this child represents. Talus's voice was hoarse. What does it represent? Venra said softly. That your species and his aren't meant to fight, but to evolve. Together. The air was too thin. Talus's thoughts reeled. Venra held up a datapad. You're not alone anymore, and the only way to survive is to go public. Talus exchanged a look with Connell. Not just a child, not just a war, a future. And if they wanted to protect it, whatever it was, they would have to risk everything to show the galaxy that it was real. Talus stared at the datapad like it might explode. The data stream on the screen wasn't just medical, it was profound. Complex hormone sequences, cellular imprinting markers, cross-species genetic fusion rates, all confirming what her body had already begun to tell her. The embryo inside her wasn't just viable, it was thriving. You're certain? She asked Dr. Venra, her voice a blend of disbelief and dread. The four-armed scientist nodded. The fusion is remarkably stable. Adaptive gene co-expression, neural viability at over 98%. It's Unprecedented. Talus sat down hard on the crate behind her. Her legs didn't trust her anymore. Connell knelt beside her, his hand brushing her arm. "We'll figure this out. Together." She didn't answer right away. Her brain kept circling back to one thing. "They're going to want to control this," she said. "My people, yours. Maybe worse." "Exactly why we have to act now," Dr. Venra added. "I've already sent encrypted messages to select factions in the Neutral Diplomatic Council. If this data leaks broadly, it could fracture the push toward war." Connell frowned. "Or accelerate it. We're sitting on something that could be seen as a threat by both sides." "Then we don't leak it," Talus said, her eyes sharpening. "We broadcast it, live, unfiltered. Not just the science, but the whole story. The mission, the lies, everything. You'd put a target on your back that's impossible to shake," Venra warned. Talus stood up slowly. "It's already there." Connell gave a half smile. "Now you're starting to sound human." But before the moment could soften, the station's lights flickered twice, then died. Emergency strips along the floor kicked in, casting everything in dim amber. A low hum vibrated beneath the deck. Venra's head snapped up. "They've found us." "How?" Talus asked, already pulling her sidearm. "The embryo's energy signature. It's like a beacon to certain tech arrays." Connell moved toward the door. "How long do we have?" Venra checked a handheld sensor. "A dropship is on approach. 10 minutes, maybe less. Armed, always." Talus looked around the darkened corridor. "Is there a secure comm array on this outpost?" Venra nodded. "In the old command dome. But it's exposed. They'll target it first. Then we get there before they do." They ran. Through forgotten maintenance corridors, over rusted catwalks under flickering light panels. The station groaned around them, systems long dormant, struggling to hold power. Every breath was thin, every footfall too loud. Connell took point blaster in one hand, scanning the corners with practiced precision. Talus followed her gut, twisting, not from fear, but from the strange gravity of urgency. She wasn't just running for herself anymore. They reached the command dome as the first shots rang out behind them. "Go!" Connell shouted, ducking behind a console and firing at the advancing syndicate operatives now flooding into the station's upper level. Talus and Venra dove for the main comm panel. Sparks danced across the old terminal, but it flickered to life under Venra's coaxing. "Secure channel is fried," she said, fingers flying across the keys. "I'm opening public broadcast access. 10 seconds. The door behind them exploded inward. Smoke and shrapnel filled the air. Connell took a bolt to the shoulder and went down hard. Talus screamed, vaulting over the console. She reached him as he struggled to sit up, his uniform burned through skin beneath already blistering. "I'm fine," he grunted. "Keep going." She glanced toward Venra, who held up a hand, then slammed it down on the terminal. "Broadcasting now." The dome's central holoprojector activated. A wide-spectrum pulse surged outward, carrying video data and biometric confirmation on every open frequency across the quadrant. A syndicate agent charged them, weapon raised. Talus dropped him with a single shot dead center. Then everything went still, because outside the shattered viewport, 2 capital-class vessels had just dropped from subspace, one Earth, one Lorathi, and both were responding. "We're receiving open hail from both sides," Venra said breathlessly. "They've seen the broadcast. They're trying to make contact." Talus didn't answer. Connell was slipping. His eyes were heavy, blood seeping down his side. "No," she said, cradling his head. No, you're not going out on me now." "Little dramatic, isn't it?" he whispered. "You're supposed to mock me. Remember?" "Shut up," she growled, blinking rapidly. "I'll mock you after I drag you to medbay." Dr. Venra was already unpacking a nanostim injector, her forearms moving fast and sure. "This will stabilize him." "Do it!" Talus held him, heart hammering, as Venra injected the stabilizer into Connell's side. He gasped, then sagged in her arms. Still breathing, barely. Outside, the 2 warships held position, bristling with weapons but silent. "Do you think they'll attack?" Venra asked quietly. Talus shook her head. "No." "Why?" She looked down at Connell, who, despite everything, still wore that damn faint smile. "Because now they know what's at stake." A moment later, her comm crackled to life. A voice, commanding, familiar. "General Karras, Ensign Vire, it said. Stand down. The situation has changed. You and Captain Maddox are to remain where you are. Reinforcements are en route. Do not resist. She held the comm unit like it might bite her. Connell stirred. We're not going with them. Are we? She exhaled. No. Venra looked at her. Then what? Tallis rose to her feet, every muscle burning with fatigue, fury, and resolve. Then we run, she said. One more time. The stolen med jumper hummed softly beneath them, far quieter than it had any right to be. Tallis guided the small vessel into a low drift pattern, slipping between the sensor shadows, cast by a debris field from an old mining skirmish. Connell lay unconscious in the recovery pod behind her, his vitals stable but weak. Venra's nanostims had done their job but barely. Tallis hadn't slept in almost 20 hours. Her body throbbed with exhaustion, and her heart beat like a war drum. Her comm pinged again. She ignored it. Another ping, then a third. Then her encrypted Lorathi line forced itself through with override clearance. Tharvax's face appeared, cold, imposing, exactly as she remembered. Ensign Vire, he said voice low. You have compromised the chain of command, violated interspecies protocols, and committed high treason. Good to see you too, sir, she said hoarsely. You have 5 minutes to transmit your coordinates and surrender. The Lorathi High Council is offering clemency, for now, and Maddox, he will be taken into protective custody, disarmed, interrogated, standard protocol. Then you're not after the data. We have the data. Thanks to your broadcast. She narrowed her eyes. That's not what this is about anymore. A beat of silence. Then he added almost gently, you're carrying a political weapon, Ensign. A symbol of convergence, of evolution, that will terrify some and inspire others. You know what that kind of imbalance causes. War, she whispered. Exactly. She cut the channel without another word. Venra, watching from the diagnostic console, raised one eyebrow. Your species negotiates like it's a blood sport. Tallis sighed. That wasn't negotiation. That was a warning. Venra tilted her head. From my scan of your fetus, I estimate you have about 5 weeks before the genetic fusion reaches a level where removal becomes fatal. Tallis stiffened. Removal. Some factions, both human and Lorathi, will consider termination the safest option. She looked away. Let them try. Connell stirred behind them. She was beside him, instantly kneeling at his side. His eyes blinked open, unfocused. Still alive. Barely. You idiot. He gave a broken smirk. You're not going to cry on me, are you? I'll cry when you're worth it. He reached for her hand. What's the plan? We leak the rest of the truth. Not just the science, the political manipulations, the syndicate connections, the military fabrications, the whole corrupt mess. Connell coughed. You sure we're not the villains in this story? She squeezed his hand. Not yet. Venra cleared her throat. There's only one place you can do it. The spiral nexus. It's the central communications relay between 14 core systems, an old neutral zone, now occupied by independent mediators and data couriers. If we upload from there, no one can suppress the signal. And how do we get there? Connell muttered. Tallis looked back at the console. We steal another ship. Of course we do. By the time they reached the edge of the spiral nexus corridor, both factions had mobilized. Lorathi gunships swept the nearby asteroid fields running cold scan protocols. Earth's long-range stealth vessels hovered just beyond legal engagement range observing. The entire quadrant felt like a fuse soaked in plasma waiting for the spark. In the midst of it all, their tiny med jumper barely registered, but Tallis knew it wouldn't last. As they approached the spiral nexus, Connell shifted in the med pod, sitting up against Venra's protest. If we don't make it, we will, Tallis said. No, he reached out. His hand was shaking. If we don't, I need you to get the data to Admiral Solis. Tallis blinked. Solis? You said she was forced into retirement. She was, but she still has influence with Earth's neutral bloc. If anyone can get the truth heard, it's her. Tallis hesitated. And if I don't make it, Connell's voice was barely audible. Then you name the baby. Her breath caught. That was the first time either of them had said it aloud. The word, the idea, baby, not just data, Not just biology, a life. They docked with the spiral nexus through a maintenance tube. Venra guided them through the back corridors like a surgeon navigating nerve clusters. We need the high-gain tower. If we uplink from the main comm throne, the entire quadrant will receive it. Sounds easy, Talus muttered. Venra smiled. It's not. By the time they reached the tower, the alarms were already blaring. Security forces, not syndicate but corporate, had received bounties. Armed mercs, private contractors, all chasing the same prize. You two uplink, Connell said, taking a position near the stairs. I'll hold them. You're still bleeding, Talus snapped. I'll hold them anyway. Talus wanted to argue, wanted to tell him there had to be another way, but there wasn't. She kissed him fast, fierce, as if she was memorizing him through her lips. Then she turned and climbed. Venra worked fast. The tower was ancient tech but powerful. As the system booted up, Talus uploaded the full archive, science transmissions, tactical records, even secret orders pulled from Lorathi and Earth channels. The screen blinked green, broadcast initializing. Below, the sound of gunfire echoed. Connell's voice crackled through comms. They brought a damn exosuit. Talus activated the transmitter. You have 30 seconds. Fall back. I'm not leaving you, he said. You are, she replied, her hand hovering over the manual override. Or I swear I'll name the baby Flargle. You monster, Connell. Pause. I love you, Talus. She swallowed. I know. Now run. The comm cut. She slammed the override. Broadcast began. Across the stars, every channel, military, civilian, pirate, diplomatic, flickered. Then lit up with data. Files. Names. Faces. Science. Truth. And at the center of it all, a glowing holomap of one small child. Not even born yet, and already the most dangerous symbol in the galaxy. The spiral nexus trembled. Not physically, the structure itself was stable. But through every relay node, every external beacon, every surveillance feed and news outlet, the story had detonated like a star-going supernova. The broadcast Talus sent out wasn't just received, it was impossible to ignore. Unfiltered, unedited, impossible to fake. A full neural-coded dump authenticated by Lorathi encryption and Earth biometric keys. And in the middle of it, the image of a developing hybrid child floating in translucent amber light, its genes a seamless blend of human and Lorathi strands. A child neither species thought could exist. A child conceived not in some sterile lab, but through connection, through trust, through defiance. Talus stumbled down the tower stairs, her body trembling with adrenaline and fatigue. The emergency lighting strobed red as sirens wailed across the nexus. Gunfire had stopped. That terrified her more than the sound itself. She found Connell just beyond the base of the stairs, slumped against the bulkhead, a plasma burn across his shoulder and side. His blaster was out of charge. So was he. She fell to her knees beside him. Connell, his eyes fluttered open. Was hoping you'd get the name out there before I died. You're not dying. Tell that to my insides. She tore open her satchel and injected another stim. Venra's on her way. You'll be fine? Hey, he murmured. Was it worth it? She looked around. The spiral nexus was quiet, but her comm was vibrating constantly, encrypted messages flooding in from systems across the galaxy. Peace advocates, rebel factions, disillusioned soldiers, scientists, refugees, even a few admirals. All saying the same thing. We saw, we believe, we're ready. Talus knotted her throat too tight to speak. Yeah, it was worth it. A moment later, Venra appeared flanked by two heavily armed spiral medics. They loaded Connell onto a gravity stretcher as Talus staggered to her feet. Global networks are stabilizing, Venra said. No data suppression so far. Too many mirrored copies. Too many independent chains sharing it. It's spreading faster than any propaganda machine can bury it. Anyone responding, dozens of factions. Earthside diplomatic bloc just issued a statement supporting the formation of a neutral inquiry council. And Lorathi High Command Venra offered a dry smile. They've gone very, very quiet. Talus exhaled. That's either good or fatal. 3 days later, Talus stood in the center of the council atrium aboard the Spire of Unity, a massive floating platform hastily assembled by mediators, ex-diplomats, and political exiles from all corners of the quadrant. It wasn't official, not yet, but it was the only place anyone trusted anymore. Connell stood beside her arm in a sling face, pale but proud. Venra hovered nearby, already hailed as the foremost authority on interspecies evolution in galactic history. The chamber was filled with species who'd once refused to share air, now leaning in curious, suspicious, but listening. Talus activated the holoprojector. The embryo's image bloomed into the room, rotating gently, a quiet, brilliant light. This, she said, was never supposed to exist. Not according to either of our peoples. Not according to our governments, our protocols, or our science. A murmur rippled through the room, and yet here she is, growing, alive, unassisted, undeniable. Her hand drifted to her abdomen. She felt it now every day. The flutter, the life. War was never about the minerals or territory. It was about fear of each other, of difference, of change. She turned to face the delegation fully. My child is proof that difference doesn't have to mean danger, that we don't need to be perfect matches to coexist. We just need to stop underestimating each other. Connell stepped up beside her. We didn't plan this. We didn't want to be symbols. But now that we are, we won't run from it. We'll protect this child and the future she represents with everything we have. There was silence. Long, tense. Then Admiral Solace, returned from political exile, rose from her seat. I move to recognize Talus Vire and Captain Connell Maddox as representatives of the Unified Diplomatic Initiative for Hybrid Futures. The motion passed unanimously. No longer fugitives, no longer enemies. Now something entirely new. 6 months later, aboard the rebuilt diplomatic vessel, Hope's Horizon Talus gave birth. Venra oversaw the delivery herself. The medical wing was sterile calm and filled with watching eyes from across the quadrant. Not because they didn't trust the process, because they couldn't believe it was real. A cry echoed through the chamber. Connell was there at her side, hand gripping hers like it was the only thing anchoring him to the moment. Talus looked up, sweat-soaked, breathless. Venra smiled. She's perfect. A nurse handed the baby to Talus. Small, pink-orange skin, teal hair already showing in soft wisps. Fingers curled around her mother's thumb with shocking strength. Connell kissed her forehead, voice choked. Hi there, little anomaly. Talus looked down, heartbreaking open in ways she'd never prepared for. She's more than that, she whispered. Connell nodded. She's the beginning. They named her Lyra after a star known for surviving the collapse of its own system. A week later, Lyra's first Kua was broadcast live across 14 systems, and for once the galaxy didn't flinch at the unknown. It leaned in.